Not App State, not Texas State, but Georgia State taking down Vandy of the SEC. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. All right, we will go through all the Sunbelt from Saturday. Only 8 games compared to what we usually have with a couple of games on Thursday and then some teams that were off. So we will get to App State with a nice bounce back win. Hey, win on the road is win on the road, and they take down East Carolina. Troy, pretty good for a half, but they fall to 0-3, and we will get into all of it. But that Georgia State football game was amazing. That is what I like to call a come-from-ahead victory, because Georgia State basically blew it before Vandy went and blew it later on. I thought, first of all, Georgia State had like a 22-10 lead, and they're throwing interceptions. So maybe not the best of situations there. And maybe that's what led to the end of the game. And I want to make sure I get this correct. So again, it was 22-10 Georgia State. Vandy goes 3 and out, and there's only a couple of minutes left in the third quarter, and that's when it got funky. And Georgia State's throwing an interception, unfortunately. And again, that may have led to what happened at the end of the ballgame. Vandy ends up scoring a touchdown, but Georgia State goes right back up on top by 12. They go up 29-17. Then they get Vandy out on downs. Vandy's done. They kick the ball away with just over 4.5 minutes to go. And unfortunately, Georgia State goes 3 and out. I thought it was a bad job by Clark Lee in that case. They stopped Georgia State on a 2nd and 5 to make it 3rd and 5, but there was holding. This is with 7 minutes left to go in the game, and they wasted 45 seconds because they got another play. Like, we need to stop Georgia State on 3rd and 5 and get off the field. Now, it didn't affect it in the end, but I didn't think that was great clock management. Also, Georgia State had no intention of passing, and we'll get to that here momentarily. And so they forced Georgia State 3 and out. Vanderbilt gets a touchdown, and now is down by 5. Oh, yeah, we didn't even go over the safety that Vanderbilt had because the ball was dropped from the end zone and into the field of play, and then the Vandy player took a knee in the end zone. So a safety on a kickoff, which you don't often see. Here is the problem, and our guy Matt Stewart, who we are big fans of, when it's 29-24 with a 2:16 left to go or so in the game, and Vandy's got a timeout, they run it again, and that's a bad decision. I understand you didn't want to do a pass to have that interception, but I need to go win the football game, because the clock is going to stop whether Vandy calls a timeout or not. So it doesn't matter. It's not like it's 1:55 and Vandy can call a timeout. They're going to get that 2-minute timeout anyway. So I'm not sure about the whole clock management thing. Doesn't matter. Vandy scores a touchdown because Georgia State made a mistake on, their receiving kickoff and had bad field position and basically ran it into the line like 3 times. They kick it away. Vanderbilt comes down, scores a touchdown in a couple plays. Thought maybe they were going to let him score. And Georgia State just goes down and marches right down the field. It did not take any time at all. They get the ball back or they get it back with 1:10 to go. And Veyer, pass complete to Talik Williams, 12 yards. Veyer, pass complete to Ted Hurst for 19 yards. They're already to the Vandy 44. They're already there. They have an incomplete pass. And then Veyer to Talik Williams for 14 yards to the Vandy 30, first down. Veyer, pass complete to Talik Williams for 5 yards to the Vandy 25. Pass incomplete on 2nd and 5. So now it's 3rd and 5, and they're doing like a fade route down the sideline. No! And then Ted Hurst, 25-yard pass completion from Veyer, and they make the extra point, and it's a 36-32 lead and victory for Georgia State. Second SEC team they've ever beaten. Just an amazing victory for Georgia State. Again, come from ahead. They were basically leading, I think, the whole game, right? Were they ahead the whole game? 3-0, 10-3, 14-3, 12-10, 15-10, 22-10. So they were ahead the whole game, except right after Vandy takes the lead. So congratulations to Del McGee. All of a sudden, Georgia State is now 2-1. We mentioned it, right? That schedule was not very easy, but they had to take advantage of playing at home and playing in the city of Atlanta. And that's where they will continue to play. Let's see if they have a game next week. Remember, they're not leaving until October 17th. They get Georgia Southern in 2 weeks. So they get a week off before they take on Georgia Southern. Speaking of Georgia Southern, 42-14 over South Carolina State. Easy, workman-like victory. J.C. French, 17 out of 23, 211 yards with a couple of touchdowns. They ran the ball rather effectively, spread it out. O.J. Arnold, 4 carries, 42 yards. It's a nice average with a touchdown. Jalen White, 13 carries, 41 yards with a couple of touchdowns. Just a workman-like effort for Georgia Southern. They improve to 2-1. They have a pretty big ball game this coming weekend. They are taking on Ole Miss, and that will be a huge game. The number 5th ranked team in the nation. Those rankings maybe not changing moving forward. But Georgia Southern with a nice workman-like effort. Georgia State gets to rest a week before Georgia Southern is heading to Atlanta. Coastal Carolina survives. That is not a pretty football game. They got off to a great start, 14-3. They were leading 21-10 at half and hang on to defeat Temple 28-20. This is what I would call a win and move on game. Ethan Vasco, boy, 15 out of 21 is nice, but for 103 yards, ouch. Just 1 touchdown. Vasco did run it 16 times for 92 yards. Christian Washington, he ran it for 59 yards, and he had 2 scores as well. Temple made it a ball game, relatively even game. In fact, Temple outgained Coastal Carolina 314 to 287. The difference in the game, Temple with a couple of turnovers, a fumble, and an interception. So a relatively tight ball game that Coastal Carolina comes away with a victory and improves to 3-0. We're still not sure how good Coastal is. The last 2 teams are lesser opponents. We'll see how good Jacksonville State is. They were supposed to be good, but they're not as good as everybody thought they were going to be. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll continue. App State with a nice bounce-back victory. And, of course, at the end, Troy falls to 0-3. All right, let's take a timeout. When we come back again, we will talk about App State. Let me tell you a little bit about 5-Hour Energy. All right, this was a big weekend. All right, it was Bourbon Fest. We were rocking at my employer Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And if I didn't have my 5-Hour Energy, I would not have made it. It is a quick turnaround, some of those days of work, and it absolutely gets me through it. Sometimes after I eat lunch, which isn't all that big of a lunch, but feels like I'm kind of stuffed, this powers me through it, that I can continue to be sharp when necessary at work. So big fan of the 5-Hour Energy. And I take one basically every day right after lunch. All right, 5-Hour Energy with zero sugar and a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors galore, like watermelon, tropical burst, grape berry, and more. There's a flavor for everyone. Try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12 or 24-pack. You can choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door, like it was to mine. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5, energy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th. They've extended the offer, and on one order only. Cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Really looking forward to previewing this week. It could be a huge week. James Madison is at Carolina. The Cajuns have Tulane on national TV. Georgia Southern is playing Ole Miss. It is one of those opportunity weekends for the Sunbelt. App State bounces back after an ugly loss to Clemson and did not get off to a great start at all. They were down 16-0 to East Carolina in the first half. In fact, East Carolina scored a touchdown like Clemson did on 3 plays. 65-yard touchdown pass from Jake Garcia to Winston Wright. So more of the same. Same thing against East Carolina. App State, 6 plays and punts. In this case, East Carolina goes down and a 12-play drive that only resulted in a field goal. App State then throws an interception for a touchdown, a pick 6, and it's 16-0 East Carolina. What a great job by App State to bounce back, because that's the kind of game that can spin out of control, and before you blink, you're down 42. Sound familiar? Except App State came back, scored a touchdown, actually went for 2 and got it, and we're trailing 16-8. They actually force a 3-and-out. They get a field goal, make it 16-11. They force another punt, and then a couple of turnovers, back-to-back turnovers by both teams. App State gets a field goal, and going from down 16-0, they are down 16-14 at the half. And then they settle down and take control in the second half with the defense. East Carolina only 3 points. In fact, only 3 points after the first quarter. So they settled down in a big way. And congratulations to App State, 2-1 now on the season. Let's check out the box score. Joey Aguilar, 32 of 47, 424 yards, but did have a couple of touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. They did not run it particularly well. 36 carries, 81 yards. Of course, they were behind for most of the first half. In fact, all of the first half. And then took the lead in the third quarter to go up 21-16. They hold on for that 21-19 victory. They did not run it particularly well, but they did have 2 100-yard receivers, almost 3. Caden Robinson, 7 catches, 129 yards. Christian Horn, 5 catches, 108 yards. Mekhi Jackson, 6 catches and 86 yards and a touchdown. Eli Wilson caught the other touchdown. He had 53 yards. So good job by App State to somehow snap out of it, and nice come-from-behind win on the road. Not so great for Troy, although at one point in time, leading Iowa in Iowa City. They had a punt return for a touchdown, and that gave Troy a 14-10 lead at half, and that was their only lead. They did get as close to 3 points in the second half. Issues with, Goose Crowder did not play. Matthew Caldwell was the quarterback, with Tucker Kilcrease playing as well. Combined, they weren't awful, right? 16-26, 229 yards, a couple of touchdowns, and an interception. Troy having issues running the football effectively or officially 21 carries for 24 yards. Caldwell apparently sacked for 24 yards, and that's where the minus comes in. He had 2 carries minus 24 yards. So Troy having an issue running the football. And they were in this ball game for, 2.5 quarters, and then the bottom falls out of it. They are a young team. They need their starting quarterback back. We'll see what happens if Goose Crowder can go forward during the season. All right. Also on maybe we did that a little bit too soon. Well, it is what it is. The other team that looked not awful and stayed with it, and someone may have had Arkansas State plus 22, so we weren't all that disappointed in the Michigan win over Arkansas State 28-18. Again, a game that can spin out of control, and give Arkansas State a lot of credit for hanging in there. They lose by 10, 28-18. They scored 15 points in the fourth quarter. They were down 21-3 to the defending national champion. And again, those things can spin out of control. And a good job for staying in the football game. And you can absolutely learn from those mistakes. Jalen Rayner, 19 out of 33 with 1 interception, 140 yards. Timmy McClain came in 7 out of 11 with 2 touchdowns. Interesting. Did not run the ball particularly well at all. 25 carries, only 58 yards, and no one scored on the ground. Reginald Harden Jr. with a couple of touchdown catches for Arkansas State. They do fall to 2-1. Again, they've played like 3 pretty good football games, right? They haven't blown anybody out, and they haven't gotten blown out. And I know there's no moral victories. I know that for sure. And I don't think Michigan's very good. But if you could get some coaches privately saying you went into Ann Arbor and lost by 10. Now, there's a little bit different of a 10, but it said 10 points at the end. They're like, if we can hang, I would think if we can hang with Michigan, and again, I don't think Michigan's nearly as good. I don't think they're going to finish in the top 25. That doesn't change the fact of who's on the team. They have some top picks in the draft. Those coaches would probably say, if we can hang with Michigan, we can do some damage in the Sun Belt. That's what they're thinking. That transitive property doesn't always work, but that's what they may be thinking. So a good job by Arkansas State to hang tough and play the full 60 minutes. All right. Again, a lot of teams, end up giving up. Mississippi State. And so, you see what happens when that is the case. All right, let's take a timeout. We will wrap up the other games in the Sun Belt. And all of a sudden, are we looking ahead to realignment again? We'll have a full show on that, or at least a segment later on. But we're already talking about that again. All right, we will do that after I tell you about FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of Sunday NFL Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook. Did go a little 5-1 over the weekend. Georgia was the only loss. And the special thing about these apps is that you can cash out before the game is over. Cashed out on Tulane. They went from could have won the ball game to not covering. And I don't mind saying cashed out early when Texas covered and Ole Miss covered. Well, it all worked out. Again, 5-1 against the spread. That's a pretty good week. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Couple more games to go over. I don't know if this is more about Virginia Tech or more about the other way. They struggle in the first half. They struggle against Vandy in the first half. They struggle against Marshall in the first half. And they struggled against ODU in the first half, although they did get off to a good start, 14-0 over ODU. ODU puts up 10 points in the second quarter, and it's 14-10 at half. And then ODU falls apart, gets outscored 23-7 in the second half and loses 37-17. No Grant Wilson. Quinn Heineckel was 5 of 12, 38 yards with a touchdown. Colton Joseph, 1 of 2. That's it, for 12 yards. The running attack, they went into the ballgame needing to run the football, and they tried to do that. Bryce Duke, 4 carries, 85 yards. Andrew Young, 17 carries, 67 yards. Heineckel with 13 carries, 64 yards. He had a touchdown, and Tariq Sims, 2 carries for 26 yards, and he had a touchdown. We'll have to wait and see on what ODU is doing with the quarterback, but a tough situation for ODU. This is the one they didn't seem like they were going to win with no Grant Wilson, and it being a 20-point ball game. They could have started the season 2-0. Instead, they are now 0-3. So it is a little bit of a tough start for ODU. And a tough start for the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. South Florida beats them 49-24. We had a ball game at half. It was 28-21, and South Florida outscores Southern Miss 21-3. It just hasn't worked out for Tate Rodemaker. 10 out of 15, 120 yards, a couple touchdowns, not awful. Ethan Crawford, 6 out of 13, 183 yards and an interception. John White played a little bit, 3 of 5 for 94 yards. Rodriguez Clark, he carried the ball 15 times, 85 yards, and Ethan Crawford did score a rushing touchdown. The bottom is falling out quickly for Southern Miss. Again, that quarterback thing is such an issue, and you don't have to go too far to see it. If you can't get the quarterback right, it's just a tough situation. Go down to Florida State. They thought they should have been in the playoff last year, and they don't have a quarterback, and they're 0-3. That's a problem. So when your quarterback play is not as consistent as you would like it to be, it doesn't have to even be spectacular. It just has to be somewhat consistent. And the Fighting Will Halls have just not been able to find a consistent quarterback since Will Hall has been there. That has unfortunately been the issue. They are at Jacksonville State and actually open up as a underdog, 6-point underdog. Jacksonville State is 6.5-point favorites. Jacksonville State hasn't played well this year. All right. They got walloped by Coastal Carolina. They actually came here to Louisville, got walloped, and they lost by 3 at Eastern Michigan. I mean, you almost say that's a must win. You hope that Southern Miss can get it done. You hope that it can get it done. All right, quickly, potential realignment. Are we serious with this? The Pac, whatever they're calling it, which is crazy. The Pac-12, which is just basically the Pac-2, which is Oregon State and Washington State, right? They have invited, I think, another half dozen teams. San Diego State, which is basically the Mountain West. San Diego State, Colorado State, Boise State, Fresno State are going in. And that's basically it. So they've invited 4. They're looking for more. And the question is, where are they looking? They're looking right in the Sun Belt territory. All right. They're talking about Texas. Is that something that Texas State is going to consider? They're looking at Tulane. They're looking at maybe Memphis. They're looking at some other schools. Now, actually, the latest thing that did not happen, right, was UConn going to the Big 12, because UConn's looking for some sort of football deal. Their football stinks, but their basketball is championship level, as they've won back-to-back championships. And women's basketball has been carrying that program for a long time as well. So they are looking for a football deal, and they don't have one. So they're staying where they are in the Big East. Whereas, what do some of these other teams do? Does Texas State want to spend that money traveling to the West Coast? They travel to the East Coast now, right? Although somewhat closer in their division. right? And we're talking about for the non-football sports, right? The non-revenue sports, right? When you're doing track and field, when you're doing soccer, when you're doing golf, right? We're not talking, men's, women's basketball or baseball or softball. We're talking those Olympic sports that, we love to watch every so often, but they just don't generate any revenue. It's a lot of money when you're hopping all the way to the West Coast or the Rocky Mountains. So we'll see what happens. See if anything happens with, the Sun Belt. If somehow UAB wanted to come into the Sun Belt, that would be great. I don't know if there's another Texas school. I don't know if you can get UTSA into the Sun Belt. I would also suggest Louisiana Tech. Cajuns fans don't want to hear that, but it's too easy of a potential rivalry. I know they're up there by Monroe. You gotta get La Tech and UAB, among others. And that's my thought. I know there's some other schools out east you can get, but I'm not sure it's going to be just a couple. They may be adding, if they do add, if these things fall apart again, they fall apart fast. And so you got to add, like 4. Those things don't happen for a little bit, right? I mean, Texas and Oklahoma were going into the, SEC this year, but that was announced a couple of years ago. So we will see what happens. In fact, it may have been announced 3 years ago. Yeah, I think 3 years ago. So we'll see what happens. Conference realignment's coming. We'll see how that affects the Sun Belt. It's been a great run for the Sun Belt here lately. I'm not sure they're going to do enough to get into the playoff. Memphis beats Florida State. Boise's undefeated. It's going to take some help. Doesn't mean that the Sun Belt can't have a fantastic season. And it ramps up this coming week. There are a bunch of games where the Sun Belt have opportunities, and some of these are going to be tough opportunities. Let's be honest. Ohio State is hosting Marshall. One of the big ones is going to be James Madison, North Carolina. James Madison is at North Carolina. UNC is favored by 10.5. Tulane's going to the Cajuns. Tulane's actually 3.5-point favorites. You got Arkansas State going to Iowa State. Iowa State is favored by 21. Interesting. Virginia is at Coastal Carolina. That could be a Power 4 win. Southern Miss at Jacksonville State, got to win that one. Troy is getting Florida A&M, have to win that one. And Georgia Southern obviously has a tall task. They are minus 36.5-point favorites going up against Ole Miss. Could you get the over on that one? And Monroe is going up against Texas. Good luck to Bryant Vincent and our guys in Monroe. That's a 45-point line there for what is now the Arch Manning-led Longhorns. But a lot of ball games, a lot of pretty good ball games. Meanwhile, on Thursday, South Alabama is going to App State. They got back-to-back Thursday ball games. See if they can do anything following their 87-point performance last week. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. We are at 1,450 subscribers. I was hoping to get to, 1,500 before the season. But, boy, if we can get to 1,500 this week, that's 50. Everybody knows somebody who likes Sun Belt football. Get them to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It would be a big help. And then I'd stop bothering you about it. But then I'm going to start to bother you to get to 2,000 by the end of 2024. So we finish one goal, we take on the next. Really do appreciate all your support. Don't forget 5-hour energy. I'm telling you, it gets me through the day. All right. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. We will hopefully get some guests on this week to preview some ball games. We'll see if we can do that. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. You've been watching and listening to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day.